Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and a quick update over at the situation at the Bakhmut front. So this is the Bakhmut front, this is Bakhmut city. For those that are lost, is here. At the Bakhmut front, the Ukrainian forces, the biggest push is mainly actually towards Klishchiivka. This is actually the prime target south of Bakhmut city. So the Ukrainian forces previously have managed to punch one hole in the Russian lines. The Russian lines is already very fragile. They have been being pushed back for quite a bit, and the Russian forces have managed to counterattack. So the Russian forces, in the latest report, have counterattacked and managed to push the Ukrainians back, mostly in the western part of Klishchiivka. So just to orientate, so this is Klishchiivka, and they have managed to push the Ukrainian forces back in this area here. However, the Ukrainians are still continuing to be putting pressure, with particular fighting over in the southwestern part of Klishchiivka. And if you zoom in, we go down, you can see Klishchiivka is actually in a very low valley area. It's surrounded, you can see, it's surrounded by a higher plateau, and this plateau is where the main fighting is happening. The Russian forces cannot fall behind this line. So this is actually where the end of the forest, the hill, sorry, end of the high ground is, and the Russian forces have to hold this line as they push forward to try to to make sure that the Ukrainians do not reach this line. Because if the Ukrainians reach all the way to this line, they will have direct view of the entire town, and they will be able to land any shots and shelling across the entire lower valley, which means the Russians will not be able to hold the town, and they will have to withdraw out of the town, or they will just be slaughtered by free shooting snipers and tanks and IFVs and whatnot. So if you zoom in and you look from this position, you can see that basically from this position, the Ukrainian forces will be able to have a very good view of most of the ground below. And of course, this is currently ignoring all the forest or the trees, but you get the point. So the Russians are fighting very hard to ensure that they do not lose this high ground, and which is why we saw the counterattack, the counteroffensive happening, that allows them to increase the buffer by a little bit. But the pressure is and the tide of war is still pretty much on the Ukrainian side, and meanwhile it's looking more like a pincer, with the Russian pushing into through the center. And so this, in the wider war around the Bakhmut front, we have a lot of pressure from the Ukrainians at the very southern tip of the Bakhmut front, with a lot of reports talking about fighting near Druzhba, Mayorsk, and Mayorsk has been fighting for 2 days already, 7 and 8, which means that the Ukrainian forces is actually putting a lot of effort to try to capture Mayorsk. And this is one of the most very strategic town. So this is actually a very strategic point, because if you zoom out, if you look at Mayorsk, Mayorsk is actually pivotal to hold the line, so that the Russians can reinforce from the rear up, and going through this junction, they can go all the way up to Bakhmut. So this road is pivotal on the holding of Mayorsk. Otherwise, the Russians will have to make do with smaller roads through Zaisevy and Dacha or whatnot. So these are major roads. As you can see, the road is pretty major. It's a proper road. If you actually, can we go in? You can actually go in. Yeah, we can go in. So you can see this is actually a proper paved road where the Russians can use to drive up towards Bakhmut city. And this pre-war, of course. So it's just an interesting note that why is this road very important, and why the Russians actually made a lot of effort to create a salient and protection or buffer around Mayorsk. And then they did not really push out further because the Ukrainians have a lot of defensive areas around here. These are all heavy entrenchment in this area here. And as you can see, there is actually already one here, which is pre-war. So you can imagine there's a lot more when after the war started. So this is the southern tip, and this is taking advantage of the struggles of the Russians over at this area here. So they put a lot of pressure in this area to draw attention away, and to pull the Russians into directions. And over in the northern flank, the Russians also launched a counter attack over at Berkhivka region. So this is Bakhmut city, and in the northern there's a small town called Berkhivka, and the Russians are actually doing this push and managed to capture some ground around Berkhivka. But however, we have reports that the Ukrainians are still attacking towards Yakhidne, which means that the Ukrainians are actually still pushing in this direction. So fighting is still ongoing in this area here, and most likely based on the mapping from Surya maps, the Russian forces kind of captured this area here. For our mapping, we actually shows the Russians to be in the much more advanced positions. So some of the sources are saying that the Ukrainians in the northern flank is currently doing regrouping. So probably the Ukrainians are actually regrouping their forces, and when they are ready, they're going to do another push to capture Berkhivka. So why Berkhivka is so important, why Yakhidne is important, is because another junction. So this junction here, north of Bakhmut city, which is also the same important junction where the Russians were previously attacking, will mean the capture and control of the northern flank of Bakhmut. With these two towns captured, the Ukrainian forces can cross over and capture Pihorodne, go up to Krasnohora, and this will break apart the entire Russian forces all the way up north here, and they will have to retreat into Soledar. This area is Soledar, and this will then threaten this communication route from Soledar to Bakhmut as well. So and allow the Ukrainians then to go up to Bakhmut, do a pincer, and capture the entire of Soledar, go to the rear. So that's why the Ukrainians are doing this. They are not going to storm through the city itself, which is not very wise if they're going to choose to do that. And further up north, you also have some fighting reported in the area of Blahodatne. This information coming from the Russian, I think it's the Russian Defense Ministry. Sorry, Ukrainian Defense Ministry is a bit vague, because they say that the Russians are conducting unsuccessful offensive operation in the area of Blahodatne, Donetsk. And this is the only Blahodatne that seems to make sense, but then no, it doesn't feel like the Russians are actually doing some kind of offensive in this area here. And on top of that, they would have just called it attack on Berkhivka or towards Berdane. So or fighting in the area of Zeleniansky. So to quote Blahodatne is a little bit unusual from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's point of wording, and from our point of view. So anyway, this is the situation over at the Bakhmut front. The Russians doing their counter attack, but situation is still pretty critical for the Russians. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next update.